Welcome to the Tom Hill Live Show on Brass City Community TV. I'm special guest host John Frasco, here with a comedian tonight. Tonight we're going to listen to the comedy of Dave Sheehan. It's a long intro. Okay, good evening, Dave. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Tom, you look so much younger than when I saw you last.
Yeah, I went to the Fountain of Middle Age. It helped me out grievously.
You're going to have to give me directions.
It's right around the corner, down the street a little ways. Just don't tell a lot of people. We don't want to take all that middle age out of it.
Yeah, it's not like we're on TV or anything. Nobody will know.
We don't want to put the people in makeup out of business. All right, so you're a comedian. How long have you been doing it?
Yes, as of this coming June, it'll be 24 years for me.
24 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Sometimes it feels like a long time. Sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday, but that's the nature of humanity.
Let me ask you this. How did you start out in comedy?
I started, like many people, I used to like watching it. I enjoyed sitcoms as a kid, just watching people be funny and laugh, and got into watching stand-up kind of in my teen years, but I was very much introverted. I had no idea when I was a teenager that this was the direction my life was going to take. Again, I'd enjoy watching stand-up showcases, and then I got to the point where I would start writing ideas down, thinking, oh, this would be funny if I ever do stand-up, even though I'm not going to, but yeah, I'm going to write this down, and I just kept writing, and then I finally realized this was something I really wanted to do. I would be talking to people just conversationally, not trying to be funny, just talking, and people would just start cracking up sometimes. And I'm like, why are you laughing? I'm just talking. And I started to see more of an alignment between that and the stuff I was writing down, and I started to think there might be something here. So I finally found a local performing arts school. I don't think they're around anymore, but they were offering improv classes, and I figured that might be a good way to just help get out of my shell, which I really needed to do. It took me a long time to pull out of my shell and just get comfortable saying odd things in front of people. And so I did a couple of classes, finally took a stand-up class, and that ended with a live showcase in front of a live audience, and I've never looked back.
You know, it's funny you say that you're introverted, because I was reading about the psychology of a comedian, and they were looking at for common psychological traits that they have. One thing they found out was they were all introverted. And they were very shy, which surprises me from somebody that goes out on stage and makes everybody laugh that they would be introverted and shy. And they also found out that most comedians are very highly intelligent. Do you find that to be the situation with some of the people you may work with?
A good amount of the time. I've heard the same study. You know, people think of a comedian, they think of somebody like Robin Williams who just walks in the room and boom, everything is joke, joke, joke. Not that there aren't comedians who do that, but the introverts are the observers. They're taking things in, they're having thought, they're writing things down, revising, practicing kind of, in the quiet of their home, or in, working in ways that will surprise people, saying things that are unexpected. I think comedy is often about the unexpected. I've had people watch me go on stage as kind of quiet, seemingly unassuming person, and they don't know what to expect. And if I can make them laugh, then the fact that I've said things you weren't expecting is part of what makes it funny.
Yeah, the shock value.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Robin Williams. I was watching John Witherspoon, who was a comedian
Yep.
that he used to do. He was at the Comedy Club out in California, and he used to say Robin Williams would come in and he was quiet. He would sit down, he would, just barely say hello, and he would just sit there. And then when it was turn to go on stage, he'd go on stage and he'd be wild and funny. Yeah. But he goes, all the rest of the time, he was very introverted. Yeah. It was kind of funny. And he even said in one of his interviews that Robin said that he was very quiet and he was shy, and he used comedy as a way of coming out of his shell, as what you basically were saying, the same thing.
Yeah, so in the case of him and with certain other performers, that could be like the character. What you see on stage is a character. It's still him, it's his own writing and thoughts, but he just expresses it very, with a lot of emotion and what he became known for. I'm not that way off stage or on. I'm being myself on stage. There isn't too much difference between what you see on stage versus off.
All right. Well, you have a lot of integrity. Then you're not portraying some other false image. Let me ask you this: when you did your first show, what was it like? Were you nervous?
Before the show, yes. I remember feeling very nervous. So this was, again, that show was the performance showcase that ended a class that some other people had taken. A few of them chose not to perform. They kind of just wanted to go through the craft and do some practice. A few other people decided they did want to actually stand up and tell the jokes they'd written. Everyone was nervous, including myself. But I found that as I walked on stage and took the mic, I just felt all the nerves just like flushed out of me. It was really bizarre. And I was calm throughout the throughout the performance. I got some decent laughs. This was at a restaurant. I made one woman spit out her chicken, which is a weird compliment, but in comedy, it worked. So, yeah, it was a good first show. Now, that's not a brag. The downside of having your first show as a comedian go well is it makes you think they're all going to go well. They're not. And I learned that soon after, but it's one of the lessons you have to take doing this.
Let me ask you another question here. You're probably familiar with Jeff Foxworthy.
Of course.
A lot of people say I look like him. I don't think so, but
I see a little bit. Or Don Amici, if you remember him.
Don Amici, yeah, I think maybe
A younger version, of
Yeah,
course.
definitely not as old as he was.
No.
But when he said when he was on stage, he was like actually in a comedic zone, and he said that sometimes it would take him time after he performed to come down from the zone that he was in. Do you do the same thing?
I understand that mindset. It's not really the case for me. I think I don't make a huge transition the way you were saying, like Robin Williams did, from being very quiet to being very out there and then back to that. It's more seamless for me. There probably is a little bit of a, like as the time is leading up where I'm about to go on stage, I'm usually repeating in my head the first two things I want to say. And as I get older, sometimes it's tough to retain those. Like I might have 4 or 5 specific jokes I want to make, possibly a reference to something the host said earlier or something in the room, something a little different from my traditional written stuff. And I'll get a few of them out and then I'm performing, but it's like, oh shoot, I can't remember the 4th thing. But I've been doing this long enough to accept that that happens sometimes, and I'll just be able to move on to something else. And later in the set, the 4th thing might come out, so I'll just organically weave it into what I was talking about.
Do you do any comedy off the cuff while you're performing?
Yes, sometimes. Sometimes with audiences, I'll have people who, not heckling per se, but they might call something out. If I say something about the town I'm in, somebody might work for the town and they'll throw out a fun fact to kind of just give me information. It's a bit of a disruption, but again, it's not like somebody booing or telling me to get off the stage. That would be sheer heckling. This is just kind of like where the audience kind of throws out information. We generally ask that they don't, but some still do. If they do that and it's something I find interesting, or if I can think of something funny about that, I might have a quick conversation with that. I might talk to audience members a little bit. If somebody's wearing an unusual hat or just kind of visually stands out, my thought is, if I'm seeing this and this is standing out to me, everyone around them is probably thinking the same thing. So let's talk about that for a minute. So yeah, I'll interact a little bit. I do have scripted stuff that I kind of stick to, but I do find it's more engaging if I talk about the building I'm in, the town I'm in, talk to the people. That way, I form a connection with them. It kind of establishes I'm here for you guys. This space we're in right now. This is the moment, and I'm here to bring this to you. I have scripted jokes that I'll deliver that I've done in other capacities, but I want this experience to also be personal for that group of people.
Yeah. Seems like you have to be, when you're interacting with the audience, you have to have some quick wit as well.
Yes. That's something else that comes in time. I think about how it comes now. I'll still freeze up sometimes. Somebody will say, like I asked an audience member recently what they do for a living, and they said something along the lines of biotech engineering and some very specific thing. It's like, oh sure, I got plenty of jokes about that. So if I don't have anything, I just kind of lean into the fact that I don't have anything in a humorous way. Or if things aren't going well, I just acknowledge that it's not going well, and just kind of that will get a laugh, and then I can kind of get back to where I was from there.
Get back into the zone.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about negative aspects, how do you handle hecklers? I'm sure you had to have one at least once.
I consider myself very fortunate that it hasn't happened a lot. Part of that may be because I'm generally PG. I think like all comedy should be a little bit controversial, maybe push the envelope a little bit. That's never really been my goal. I'm more observational, dry, self-deprecating. But you will occasionally get somebody who's had too much, or just for whatever reason has to prove to everybody that they're funnier than the guy on stage. Some people get aggressive and will say vulgar or threatening things back. And if that works, sometimes that works. That's not really my style, because it's not who I am as a person. If I'm dealing with a difficult person in day-to-day life, I would deal with it a certain way, and that's kind of what I do on stage. I kind of just try to talk to them. If it seems like they're very hammered, you can't reason with a hammered person.
You can't reason with the unreasonable.
Yeah, other things are driving there, so hopefully they get ushered out, which usually happens. Like at a club, someone will be there to guide them out, because they're not only ruining it for me, they're ruining it for everyone. Nobody came to see somebody act like a buffoon. They paid money to see a show. Everyone wants to see who's on stage. They want to see them do well. They don't want to see this side stuff. So I'll try talking with them. If it seems like I can get them to calm down, great. If they're just being disruptive, I might get a little short, but again, it's just not in my nature. I did have one odd experience recently. I was the last performer in a show. I was supposed to do 30 minutes, and there were two very drunk women sitting right up next to the stage. This was at a bar, and they were sitting at a table right next to the stage. And increasingly throughout the night, they were continuing to drink. Every other comic that was on before me, they were calling, again, not heckling, but disrupting. Oh, I love what you're talking about. You know, they start talking like it's a conversation. Everyone dealt with them fine, but I kept saying to the producer, are we going to do something about this? And he kept saying maybe, or like, I got it. So, you know, I figure I'm going to get up there. It's going to be the same thing. I was not expecting what happened. I got up and started performing. They stayed and watched. They were watching me, focused. The rest of the room was laughing as I was performing. They were not. They were just staring, expressionless, quiet. About 5 minutes in, one of the women stood up slowly, non-disruptively, and walked out of the room. And 30 seconds later, her friend did the same thing, and they never came back. In 24 years of comedy, I've never bored hecklers out of the room. That's a rarity. I don't see that ever happening again. I don't think a lot of people have that story.
Maybe that's a new approach. You may be onto something there.
I mean, it's along the lines of like Andy Kaufman, who would go up there and read like Charles Dickens novels, but he was trying to be unusual. I was not. That was not. I just figured they'd continue heckling, but I quietly put them to sleep to the point where they left the room while the rest of the audience was having a good time. So it's always unpredictable.
Yeah, I always thought, I mean, when I go to a comedy show, and I've been to a number of them, I always went there to laugh. I want to be entertained. I want to have a good time. I don't understand the mindset of these people that go to heckle. I actually think they take away a lot from the show.
Oh, very much so.
And they probably also take all the way the rhythm from the comedian, because they have a certain
100%.
Rhythm, like a music. It's like a rhythm that
Yeah,
they have.
because you're telling a story, and to tell a story effectively, you have to build cadence. Like it progresses. If you're this close to telling the big payoff punchline, and some drunk guy yells out "Free Bird," he's just derailed everything you were building up. So yeah, very much so. It's about pacing, rhythm, telling a story, and we work on this. It's that, you know, we spend a lot of time revising, trying to make the story as funny and effective and memorable as possible. And we need quiet. We need time to build that up, and the disruptions help nobody.
Yeah, I agree with you totally on that. Let me ask you this. How would you describe your comedic style?
I have a few different styles. So I'm relatively dry. I'm not very loud or animated. You know, we're talking about Robin Williams. I do some observational. I'll usually try to do a few jokes about the town I'm in, the building I'm in. If there's an unusual decoration or an unusual backdrop, I might make a joke or two about that. Maybe a little bit of interaction with the audience, not an extensive amount. Observational about things in life, some self-deprecating humor. And I also have a collection of one-liners. When I do longer sets, I usually end with a collection of one-liners, all of which are questions.
So you're a combination of like Jerry Seinfeld, Rodney Dangerfield, and
Stephen Wright.
Stephen Wright, yeah.
Yeah, that could be put. I love those. I admire all of them. I would have loved to see Rodney live. I never got to.
I saw him twice, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
You know, when we were talking about hecklers, he did something interesting. He had somebody, and it happened at a number of his shows, he'd have one of his staff go back and heckle him with some predetermined statement, and he would respond to it, which was much funnier than the statement that they were making.
Oh, of course.
So, I mean, Rodney was quite unique.
Yeah.
How frequently do you change your material? Because one thing, I went to see Rodney 2 years, one time, and then 2 years later, the material was the same.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same.
Yeah, I don't change often. If a bit is working, I'm going to continue doing it. I'm of the mindset where even if you write a joke that hits really hard 49 times out of 50, that doesn't mean it's perfect. There still could be theoretically a way to improve it. And I'll revisit it sometimes. I might try it a different way depending on if the show requirements are different. Sometimes I'm pretty clean, but sometimes they say you have to be super clean. You can't even talk about X, Y, and Z or whatever. And if I have a reference to that somewhere, I'm not even going to take the chance, so I'll take it out. But that means changing an existing joke. So I'll modify things that have not been that great. It's like I know there's something here. Let me revise it. But if a joke has been working well, I'm gonna continue it in there. But overall, my set is a work in progress. There's jokes I did 15 years ago that might still be topical, but aren't really who I am anymore. So I'll kind of retire those, or just how I write, watch other people and learn from them continues to grow. So the overall set, like if I'm doing a 30-minute set, the bulk of that is not going to change month to month, but in a few years, you'll see some of the same things, but not all of it. So I'm not sure percentage-wise, but I'm always looking to add new things and revise things in addition to continuing to performing the jokes that I feel are very strong.
I know sometimes, like a songwriter, that when they write a song about a particular place, like say they're writing a song about Waterbury, they'll add that to into the song. But if they go to New Haven, instead of saying Waterbury, they'll conform it to New Haven instead. They'll sing instead, switch the city from Waterbury to New Haven. Do you do the same thing with your comedy?
A little bit. If I have references to like local restaurants or store chains or something like that, and then I go to upstate New York and do a show where they don't have that chain, then it's like, oh, those don't exist here, I have to pivot. Or if the punchline is referencing a local city, oh, they're not going to know that in central Pennsylvania, so how am I either don't do the joke, or I'll ask what's a local town that fits the same profile. I'll ask the bartender or something before the show starts to try to cater it and bring it to them. And sometimes that catches audiences off guard. Like I recently performed in upstate New York in a very rural area, and I mentioned a nearby town simply because I saw it on a highway sign, and an audience member said, "Wait, you know that town?" I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of it."
We go way back on that town.
Just sometimes looking a little bit about the town. Some of my comedian peers, if they go out of the area, they'll like Google the town and like, what is this town famous for? Sometimes like a formerly popular celebrity lives there, or they're the soybean capital of what, the unusual things that we can reference and kind of talk about. So yeah, I will kind of tailor it based on where I go.
You integrate certain features into the comedy. That's good.
Yeah, again, just trying to bring this audience to me and make it a shared experience.
Well, that does give you more of a grip with the audience, because they can relate to it, because now you got a common thread between you.
Yes.
What makes you unique amongst local comedians?
I think it's, again, I don't see a lot of the mix I was describing, like dry and self-deprecating. One thing I've come to find, and this came more than 10 years in, I kept thinking of one-liners, even though I wasn't really a one-liner comic. And I'd just start writing them down, and then one night at an open mic I had about 2 dozen, so I just tried them out. They didn't all hit, but some of them landed so well I realized I might have something here. So I kind of just started developing that as part of my overall set, to the point where I have like well over 100 now. And what I found to be unique and to match my style, they're all questions. So you've seen a lot of popular like one-liner, like Stephen Wright is probably the best known one. Mitch Hedberg was another very popular guy who was known for one-liners. But I've never seen, either at a global level or a local level, anyone else whose one-liners are all questions. So I feel like I've come up with something I've not seen anyone else doing.
You think you're entering into being more of a humorist there? You're making the audience think about your comedy?
Possibly. I've had, I did hear indirectly that a certain promoter didn't want to hire me because I'd make audiences think too hard, which is not a goal I set out to do. I'm just speaking the way I think and relating to people the way I think. I guess I'm a thinker. So I'm not trying to force people to think, but I have a sense of things that I find funny. So I'm hoping to write in a way that I'll find that the people who find that funny will find me. And if I'm not for everyone, no comedian is for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their particular likes and dislikes. I mean, I always thought George Carlin was more of a humorist, because when his comedy made you think, like he would say, why do we drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? And everybody, why do it? That's the opposite of what it should be.
So I think some of my one-liners hit that way. Others are a little more like gut punch funny. Others are like, oh yeah, why is that? Like sometimes I'll say something and I'll hear an audience member go, that's interesting. I'm like, yes, that's what I'm going for, sir. Interesting. I mean, in a way, yes, because I love the quote from Chris Rock. I don't remember it verbatim, but he said that his goal is to be funny, but if he can't be funny, he wants to at least be interesting. And I'm in the same boat. I understand that I can't be for everyone, but if you're not finding me funny, I hope you will at least listen to what I have to say. Maybe it'll make you think about things you hadn't before.
Can you give me an example of one of your one-liners?
Or on TV. Again, no. So one that let's see, I'm trying to think of one that's fitting and not...
All right, we can give you some time.
Let's come back to that so I can think of one that's fitting for the conversation.
Okay. What changes have you seen in comedy since you started?
So when I started in the early 2000s, one of the biggest changes between then and now is there was no social media. So finding out about opportunities was mostly word of mouth. It still kind of is, but social media you can find out about so much so quickly, so much more easily.
I think we got a phone call.
Oh, okay.
Hello, caller. You're on.
Yes, hello. May I speak to the comedian, please?
Go ahead.
Hello.
Are you really Dave Sheehan?
That's a very philosophical question. Yes, as far as I know, as far as the doctors where I was born
This is
told me.
Mona. I was married to you 20 years ago. I really miss you. Could we get back together?
You're either talking about someone who had the same name, or the Valium is really working well.
No, I recognize that beautiful smile and that beautiful feature. And if you remember right, you junked me and threw me over the side of the boat. And I'm still kind of distressed over it.
All right, thank you for your time, Mona.
Tom, I'll have my lawyer call you tomorrow, and you can work that through. You did warn me about the callers,
Well, you've got to be ready for every scenario here.
just like on the stage.
What was the question that I asked you? What changes have you seen in comedy in this last 20 years?
So, prior to social media, you found out about, again, things word of mouth or newspaper clippings, bulletin boards, or again, you'd have to do well in front of other performers and say, oh, you were good, why don't you come and work for me? So it was a little tougher to find out about things just because the scene was not as well connected as social media. That was a big advantage of social media. More recently, we're seeing trends where people are going what's called viral. They'll get millions of viewers making very short clips that are funny, but because they get popular and get viewers, that they become a draw. So they'll book an hour at a comedy club, but they've never been on stage for an hour. So going from 10 seconds to an hour is much different because it's stand-up comedy it's performance art. It's putting an entire set together, keeping it funny and engaging the entire time. And with the short clips that social media is known for, I'm not saying there aren't people who have done that well, but I think it's a shock value sometimes if you just have done short things trying to, a 30-second clip or 10-second clip can be very funny, but translating that to 5 minutes of consistent engagement and funny is different. And I know that there's a lot of people who are getting stage time simply because they fill seats at a club. You got to pay the bill, so you got to bring in people who will be a draw. But you'll see the name and it might not be somebody you've heard of or somebody who has the writing talent and performance talent but just doesn't have the followers. So there's kind of a bit of a disconnect that's become common in the last few years with social media.
Let me ask you this. If you were to take, what would be the longest time frame that you'd have material for? I mean, if you said like you've been on stage for an hour, but if they said, well, somebody didn't show up, so now you got to do 2 hours, would you have enough material to do 2 hours of comedy?
2 hours seems like, ooh, for me. I would be willing. Actually, it's kind of interesting. The first time I met Tom, I'd been hired to be the entertainer at a holiday party. And that was the first time I had ever done a full hour. I, of course, didn't tell them that. And the feedback I got was mostly good. And I had, in terms of what I'd had written and prepared, it was probably on the 45 minute side. So I decided the rest would be interactive. So I started off doing some observational stuff, like I mentioned earlier. I integrated that into the crowd. Tom himself volunteered some things I could react to among the other people there.
Yeah, Tom tends to be funny himself.
Yes, he provided a lot of unintentional material, but he helped me engage with the group, which in a longer set is something I would like to do. If somebody said go on for 2 hours, I'd have to evaluate the circumstances. I want to make sure it's something I can deliver and do well on. I could stand and continue to talk and engage for 2 hours, but it's not something I've done, so I'd want to practice that. But I think it is good to push yourself a little bit beyond. If somebody wants you to go a little bit longer than you have, and that's at any level. If somebody who's only been in for a few months and has a good 5-minute set, gets asked to do 10 minutes, they should say yes, and then take the challenge and figure it out. If you've only have 5 minutes and they say do an hour, that's too big a gap. But always be looking a little beyond, not just in comedy, but in life. Always be willing to push a little bit.
They say you get growth and improvement when you get out of your comfort zone. So
Yes.
that's by going a little longer.
I
That's
swear
taking
by
you out
that.
of
Again,
your
in comedy,
comfort zone.
in comedy and in life, I fully abide by that. Yes.
Being a comedian, it's kind of a unique profession. You must get some strange questions from people, I would imagine.
Yes. Earlier in my career, I used to get a lot, tell me a joke. One thing I found, a peer of mine helped me kind of realize this, that actually kind of makes a slight difference in that is to introduce myself not just as a comedian or a comic, but as a professional comedian. Somehow that just kind of makes me stand out a little bit, which makes sense given how long I've been doing it. For someone who's been doing it 2 years would more likely say comedian, and then that's kind of where that comes in. Or they'll try to tell me a joke, or there's another one that's escaping my mind right now. Tell me a joke is the most common one. Another fairly regular thing I hear when I'm hanging out with people socially and they're saying things that are funny or weird, or those odd relatives who say the things odd relatives say, they'll turn to me and just be like, "You're writing all this down, right? You go on stage and talk about us, right?" It's like, nobody would believe me. So.
I was going to say, where do you get most of your material from?
All different kinds of places. I'll hear somebody say a word, and it has nothing to do with what they're talking about other than that word, but for whatever reason, that just sets something off in my head, so I put it in my notes. Sometimes watching comedians will inspire me, like I'm not taking their stuff, but they might mention something, or they'll introduce a premise, and I think they're gonna go one way with it, but they go in a completely different direction, so I start writing out that premise, because premises are pretty much general. Punchlines are unique to comedians, but premises, you can hear every comedian talk about their dating struggles, or going to the gym, or a job they didn't like. What their specific story is what's unique, but any comedian can talk about, "Tell her I'm not home."
All right, we got another call. Go ahead, caller. You're on live, Tom Hill Live.
Hi, Dave. I saw you speak in the past. I'd like to know, how do you market yourself and get all these kind of jobs to try to keep busy as a comedian? And also, do you have a day job?
I have a website, davesheehancomedy.com. I'm also a branch manager for our comedy fundraising organization. I'll probably mention that a little bit later in the show. My website lists most of my majority of my upcoming show dates. There's some clips, some information about my background, and a way to get in contact with me if you were interested in hiring me for a show or for a performance. I did have a day job in the corporate world. I was laid off a few months ago, so I'm kind of in search mode right now, in between roles. But I was in IT, customer success, for a long time, helping customers manage their cloud software.
Wow, that's an interesting background. Do you think the host is at all funny tonight?
I do.
Well, thank you. I like the program.
Thank you, caller. Let me ask you this.
Was that Tom's nephew?
Yeah, it sounded like it, or his son. Let me ask you this. A lot of people would like to start out in comedy. What advice would you give them? What directions would you give them? Where should they start? What should they do to become improve their talents?
If someone is thinking about it, my advice, first of all, is go ahead and do it. There's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of self-doubt. Just the whole, feeling terrified about even getting up there. If you can get up there and do your first few minutes, that's one of the biggest hurdles any comedian has to get to, because there's so many people who think about it and, I want to do it, but I don't want this to happen. That's normal, but my main encouragement would be, if you've ever thought about it, if you've written stuff down and have ever said, this is what I would do if I do it, but I'm never going to do it, find a way to do it. Find open mics, look on social media, look in your area. There's most likely an open mic in your area. If you can find a professional show that's, again, at a club or at a restaurant, a fundraiser in your area, Google that, see what's coming up. Go to the show, go and watch, go and talk to the comics afterward. The majority there's exceptions, of course, but the majority of the people I've worked with in comedy are just the coolest, the nicest people. If they meet somebody who's into it or interested, they'll be glad to share information. I've certainly done that. I've talked to people at audiences who come up and talk to me after the show. I try to be as encouraging as possible. I'm grateful that they've come out to support comedy. We can't do comedy without live audiences. So if people are thinking about it, I would just say Google how to write, how to get started, find comedians in your area. There probably are some, even if you've never come across them. That's another thing I didn't realize before social media in the early days.
I think what you're saying is these comedians are a supportive group, so they're trying to lift each other up.
Yes.
So, if you're having trouble, they would come in there and assist you.
Yes. There's exceptions, of course, but...
Okay, let's take a break now. We're going to go to a video of Tom Hill at Willie Davis's 3D Music Academy event that was at the Polo Club at the Palace Theater this last Tuesday.
Hi, Tom Hill from Tom Hill Live here at Cable 13. We're at the 3D Music Festival down here at the Poli Club in the Palace Theater in downtown Waterbury. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3D Music Academy. The Academy is designed to empower young people ages 5 through 18 with the skills and confidence they need to pursue their dreams in music free of charge. Secondly, it's a safe and comfortable environment. Thirdly, it's a team of experienced teachers and musical instructors who are committed to helping children on drums, as you hear, piano, it's warming up, vocals and horns are our specialty. Harold Zinno is the lead teacher of horns and helping Will Davis run the academy. You've seen Will Davis on our Tom Hill show on Cable 13. You can find repeats of that on the Brass City YouTube channel. Free meals are provided so the kids don't go home hungry. Sessions are held twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. at 83 Prospect Street in downtown Waterbury. And if you want to email Will Davis, who's the leader of this school, it's 3D at 3dmusicacademy.com. The number 3D at 3dmusicacademyinc.com. And Willie is the head of it. And if there's any further questions, you could always call me at 755-HILL, 203-755-HILL, and leave a message, and I'll introduce you and help any way possible. Thanks to Brass City TV, Al1 and Al2, for coming down to film this at the Poli Theater in the Palace Theater in downtown Waterbury.
Okay, we're back with comedian Dave Sheehan. Dave, I've got a question for you. Comedy seems to go in cycles. It gets popular and then it does, it seems to slack off a little. I heard currently in the news that they're saying sometimes these comedians go too far. What is your perspective on that?
That's a part of the cycle, believe it or not. What's controversial at any given time changes, of course, over the decades. It came up recently, just, is this okay? There was the woke era and several years ago, and you can't say this, you can't say that. There's always been an element of you can't say this, you can't say that. Part of comedy's job is to push the envelope a little. How far is acceptable varies among certain people. Conservative-minded people obviously don't like when you push it at all. Other people want to push it as far as it can go and see. But that came up not only recently, but I read about a study that someone had done evaluating comedians going back from like the 2020s all the way back as far as like Lenny Bruce, a controversial name from the 60s, and found roughly every 10 years you could find a newspaper article saying exactly the same thing. In the 80s or in the 90s, oh, is Andrew Dice Clay going too far? Oh, and is this figure going too far in the 70s or whatever? It's always been part of it. So it kind of just shifts, almost like the way music does, like who's controversial, or the older generations typically think this is too flashy. I don't want younger people seeing this. With comedy, it's like, oh, younger people shouldn't be hearing this. So I don't think it's anything new. There's always going to be people who will hear one or two people who are gaining popularity and saying things that are trigger words, that are, how can you joke about stuff that's not funny? That's not funny. They shouldn't be saying it. It's the nature of the business. So the specifics will change, like what's being complained about, but the concept of it being considered controversial has kind of always been the nature of stand-up comedy.
Yeah, usually most comedians do like to push the envelope, and I noticed edgy material makes them popular quicker.
Yeah, because you're saying things that either people are thinking but no one else is saying.
Has the nerve to say.
Or you're saying things nobody's even thought of, like, oh, that's groundbreaking, and it gets them thinking, and whoever's boat that rocks doesn't like it because it's like, I'm content with this, why are they saying that? That's a threat to me. So yeah, it's just part of the cycle. I don't think stand-up comedy is going, it's changing as with every other performance art, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Okay. Well, yeah, probably it's something that's going to stay with time and just
Yes.
go in cycles. Oh, we got another caller. You're on Tom Hill Live.
Yes, could you talk a little bit, the comedian, please, about the filthy, dirty comedians that use F-bombs nonstop versus the really smart ones that can make you really laugh without using any profanity? Thank you. I'll hang up and listen.
F-bombing.
Yes. So I don't use profanity largely because I don't generally use it in my day-to-day life. And again, I'm on stage. I'm more or less the same person, as I said earlier. I'm not averse to obscenities in comedy. There is a place for it, but I feel many people, especially younger people starting out, seem to think that if it's dirty, it's funny, that they go hand in hand. And I don't agree. You can be dirty and funny. You don't have to be dirty to be funny. I see a lot of like open micers will be saying things simply because it's shock value. It's the sensitive stuff that or those taboo topics that aren't funny. But you've seen some comedians say it and it's funny. The difference is a younger, newer person who wants to shock people simply by saying the words. That's all they care about, is making audiences real without having anything of value to bring. If you see an established comedian talking about a sensitive topic like drug use or abuse of some kind, they're probably talking about a personal story that they're getting out in a creative way and have found ways to put a humorous take on it. They're not saying that the abuse itself is funny, but it's more of the perspective of, I've been through this horrible thing, I've risen above it, I'm not going to let it define me, I'm moving on, and one of the tactics I'm using to get past it is humor. That's their take. That doesn't mean it's okay for anyone to go out and say those things are funny. It's just a matter of how you bring it and what is your intent. I remember talking to a younger comedian one point saying, like, I'm trying to think of what can I get away with? And that's a really bad way to go about it. Write about yourself. If you drop a few F-bombs, okay. But if you're one of those comedians who every fifth word is F, it doesn't matter what every fifth word is. If you're saying the same thing over and over, I can't speak for everyone, but to me, I can't pay attention to what you're saying because I get so distracted by the fact that you're saying something, and it doesn't even have to be obscene, not to get off topic, but there's people who say, you know what I'm saying after every sentence, or right, or I notice that and it grates on me. And that's just a conversational thing, but if you're saying curse words to say curse words and you're not bringing any value, then you need to rework what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the redundancy is because there's too much redundancy and it gets old quick.
Yes.
Like comedy has a very short life. I mean, you can tell a joke now, but you can't tell it again 3 minutes later.
Yes.
You know, it's got a life, it lives, it dies, and then you got to move on to another funny topic.
Yes, a friend of mine told me he saw Ray Romano one time. Very funny, generally known for being clean. Had a 1 hour set, like one F-bomb right in the middle, and the rest was clean. To me, that's a very effective use if you're going to use profanity, because nobody's expecting it. And then you think, oh, is he going to say it again? And he doesn't, but it's still funny. So he caught everyone off guard and used it very the right way, in my opinion.
I think sometimes they use profanity for extra emphasis,
Yes.
which shows a lack of their talent to actually say it funny in a funny way.
Agreed. It can be like, hey, look what I just said, versus if you said the same thing without that word, it might have been funny, but you're not really adding anything simply by having it in there.
Yeah, I think it takes away. Is there any particular type of audience or venue that you prefer to perform in?
I'm more interested in like what matters more. People think how many people are in the audience is good. Obviously, generally a larger audience is nice because laughter is contagious. If I get a small audience that's only like 10 people and for whatever reason they're just reluctant to laugh, then the room's like empty, you don't really hear anything, then I kind of feel like I'm talking to the wall. But I've also performed in front of a small group, 8 or 10 people, and they were having the time of their lives. They were laughing at everything, they're having a great time. So I would rather perform in front of an energetic group of 10 people than a meh group of 100 people who they're not even sure why they came. Maybe they got free tickets, maybe they just happened into the venue, like, oh, let's just do this for the night. I find that performing at venues that are on the smaller side tend to be good because you get that more intimate feeling. I can see to the back. I can talk to the people in the back if necessary. In a big theater, which I've been able to perform at a few times, if I can't see you in the back, then I'm kind of talking into the abyss. I hear the laughter and it's validating, but just being able to see all the way to the back and knowing I'm making that connection with the entire room, that stands out to me.
When you said contagious, it made me think of something. I always thought that laughter was the best medicine. I think like sometimes when people get depressed or they're down, if they went and watched comedy or listened to some comedy, I think it would raise their spirits and bring them out of depression. Have you found that anybody came to your audience and would say, geez, I was going through a tough time and your comedy improved my mood and made me see hope or anything of that to that effect?
Yeah, sometimes people say that this made my day, or I had a rough day, or deal with something I needed to get away from, and this was the perfect thing. So I fully agree with that. Also, the contagion thing helps. So if I have a larger audience and they're not necessarily into it, if a couple of people laugh or one person has a unique laugh, they might laugh and then someone laughs at them laughing, and then that gets so it's kind of a beach ball effect, and then I can react to that. But it's good to have those few people if it's not the most energetic audience, because it creates something else to react to. And if nobody laughs at the joke, then I can kind of react to the fact that nobody laughed. But laughter is contagious. That's why at a club, the seating is usually done structured, like from the front and then kind of spiders out. They have an intentional way of doing it based on how crowds react. If you let people seat themselves in a big venue and not many people come, you're gonna get 2 people here, 2 people here. Contagion doesn't really work that way in terms of laughter. So better to sit up front, although they're often reluctant to be that close, or at least
They're
together.
afraid they're going to be
Yes.
part of your routine.
Or if they're all going to sit in the back, sit together, because that way you're a group. But as I always say in that situation, if the first 2 rows are empty and everyone's in the 3rd row and back, guess what, 3rd row? You're the front row now.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever done improv?
Yes. I started doing improv partly because I didn't want to start stand-up without taking a class first. And the school where I found improv, they had a stand-up class in their catalog. They just didn't have any offerings at the moment. They didn't have anyone to teach it. But they had improv, which I figured would be similar and would give me some, again, getting used to it, cutting my teeth, getting used to something I was not used to, which was standing up in front of people, being zany and such. So I took a few classes. I joined a few groups over the years, which I really enjoyed. I kind of miss it. I just don't have the time in my life now to commit to a group, because you do need good chemistry to make a strong improv group, even though you're making stuff up off the cuff. There is chemistry there. They know how they work together, how to bring out each other's strengths, and I do enjoy doing that as well. I just haven't in some time.
Yeah, I heard comedy defined as there's like 2 different types of comedians. There's comedians that say funny things, and there are comedians that say things in a funny way. Do you have any feedback on that, or what's your impression of that?
I think that's true. I think I'm in the first category. I think, phone call?
You want to finish?
No, I'll come back to
All
it.
right, we'll take the call. Caller, you're on Tom Hill Live.
Hi, John. This is your neighbor, Cindy. When did you become a big TV star?
It happened today, as a matter of fact. I'm glad you found out. I thought you were going to be out drinking tonight.
Did Tom Hill get fired?
No, he was. He's got a big real estate deal that he's tying up right now.
Speaking of getting... No, never mind. Could you ask Mr. Sheehan if there are steps to getting over stage fright? And was he nervous in the beginning?
Dave?
Part of that was already covered. Maybe you went to the bathroom with that. I can't help noticing how much you sound like my ex-wife that I never knew I had. But thank you for the question. Getting over stage fright. I mean, it would be nice if there was a quick and easy way, but it's just repetition. Any fear is just finding a way to take incremental steps to get over it. Figure out like small actions you can take. If you're afraid of being on stage, you could walk onto a stage just when there's nothing going on, just kind of get a sense of the lay of the land. Sometimes just, cold turkey, just throw yourself into it. I don't know that I was nervous at first, but part of doing this is just being comfortable with the awkwardness, accepting that that's part of it, being comfortable with the silence. It's normal as people to, if the expectation, if you're in the limelight as a comedian or a presenter or giving a speech at work or anything like that, you know that everybody's looking at you to talk and to fill the space. So your instinct is to not let there be silence. Let me just keep talking, even if I don't, you can. There's all these ways you can fill, what I'm saying, that kind of stuff. But it's okay to be silent as long as you're confident and in control and knowing where you're going to take whoever's listening to you. So just slowly adopting those things over time and just realizing that you have the power to do what you want to do and just finding your way to get there.
Don't you get an adrenaline boost when you get that first laugh?
Sometimes, yeah. I think for a lot of people... Oh, is she still on?
Yeah, she's still on.
I'm assuming it's a she. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Even though they said it was Cindy. Yeah, adrenaline can be part of it. I do believe that it can take a while to find your footing and get your voice out. It really takes years. It's not something you're going to find in a couple of weeks or a couple of open mics. But I truly believe it's worth doing if you thought about it, and working with whatever method you need to do. If it's a pre-show ritual, listening to pump up music, going elsewhere in your mind. If you need to think about other things as you're delivering, which can be tough at first because you're so focused on getting your material right. Picturing the audience wearing funny hats, there's a lot of different tactics to getting past it. But I encourage everyone, because I used to have it, and it takes a long time. It feels awkward. You'll walk off feeling like you just want to go home and bury yourself in bed for a week, but you got to get past it. It's so worth it.
You did talk about a pre-show ritual, and I've heard of a lot of comedians do have a pre-show ritual to get them into that mindset or the comedic zone. Do you have anything that you use in particular?
Nothing formal. I do know some people who will do like the earbuds. They have certain playlists, the pump-up playlists, or they'll go outside and vape or do whatever younger people do now. I find that I pace. I don't feel nervous, like I don't have like stomach nerves, but maybe it's body nervousness because I kind of just pace as I'm going through in my head what I want to say. Sometimes I'm watching the previous comedian if there's someone on before me. I think the pacing is just unintentionally part of it. I know some people will do like warm-up exercise, like red leather, yellow, the tongue twisters to kind of get their mouth and throat ready to speak. Really, for me, it's just kind of getting my head in the right place. I don't listen to music. I would rather just kind of be just in my own mind for a little bit. Sometimes people will be engaging me in conversation, not realizing, look, I'm going on stage in 20 seconds. I do want to continue this, but I got to get my mind right. So usually just a little bit of being on my own, focusing, watching, listening to how the host brings me up, if I want to say anything about that. But just nothing like, I don't have like a specific playlist or any unusual rituals that I know some performers have.
Okay. Does your material ever get outdated, or is it timeless?
Some does. I make some references in my act, like to celebrities or TV shows or a popular commercial Sometimes if that commercial goes out of rotation or the celebrity passes away, then it's like, oh, the joke doesn't really work anymore. If I'm talking about myself, which I probably still should do more even at this point, I might have a humorous story or something funny I thought about something general in the world. If that thing in the world is just universal, then it's not going to get outdated. But yeah, I've written bits about things that just are no longer relevant, so I kind of have to retire them as it happens. I don't talk about politics much. I've never really been interested too much in that, but if you write a lengthy bit about like a political candidate and then, they're only going to be in office for so long, and then after a while, 10 years after they've been in office, you have these younger 20-somethings coming like, who is he even talking about? So you just kind of have to be cognizant of that as far as what you're, if you're a political humorist, that's built in, so you're going to have to change. But if you're writing stories about like your upbringing, your spouse, that stuff isn't really going to change. Even if you get separated, you still have that story about when you were with that person. So your own stories are kind of timeless, but things about observational pop culture stuff that can find its way out.
Yeah, I think a lot of comedians use the interaction between men and women, and that's a timeless type
Yes.
scenario. So I mean,
Yeah.
that'll be last 100 years.
Yes, even as both genders and the gender identity change, I think a lot of it is still standard, and there's going to be humor in the different identity culture that's come up that younger people are addressing now.
How do you interact with your audience? I mean, you did say that sometimes you'd like to interact with the audience. What would be your approach? What are you looking for? Are you picking out particular people in the audience, or is it just general?
I will usually, before I start, I'll kind of look out at the audience. Somebody might stand out to me. If somebody looks like a celebrity, I'll make the comparison. I'll watch other comedians before me. Sometimes if they're talking to people and find out somebody has an unusual occupation or mentions a relative with an unusual situation. I was at a show recently where the opening act found out that one audience member had a twin, and the twin was in prison on the other side of the country and just got married in prison. So that was like 5 minutes of content just there exploring that topic. And then somebody else at that same table, when I got up there, his daughter pointed out that his job was working on a farm and helping cows birth. But the way she explained it with gestures and verbiage was a running joke throughout my entire set that night. And I was not expecting that. So you really never know what you're going to get when you talk to people, but sometimes basic questions or slightly off the cuff questions will just bring an answer you can run with forever.
I had a roommate, and he worked on a farm, and when you brought up this cow, he was giving a vivid description of what it's like to birth a cow. I was eating a sandwich at the time. He was so detailed, I couldn't finish the sandwich.
I hope it wasn't beef.
I don't know what it was, but I couldn't stomach it after that story. What surprised you the most about stand-up throughout your career?
Probably that I never stopped, and I don't think most people who get into comedy even do this, that your journey is not established when you start. No, I've been doing this 20 plus years. I still don't know what my journey is, and that's not a bad thing. There's people who are in it for a couple of years, and then suddenly they're on television, and then they're global acts. I work with people who are among the funniest people I've ever met, but they work on local shows. They work at local clubs, fundraiser shows, etc. But you're never going to see them on Netflix. And that doesn't mean they're not good. They're just not famous. So many really good comedians aren't famous. So I don't think I hit my stride and really being in my own voice on stage probably till, I don't even know when it happened, 7 or 8 years. It takes a long time to find that and figure out that you're always going to be growing. I'm still learning things from my peers now. I learn things from newer comics who are coming in. I try to help them out as much as I can because so many comics helped me when I was starting and continue to help me.
Yeah, a little mentorship for the up-and-coming guys.
Yeah, and it's just, you can mentor people who have been in it, who are newer. You can mentor people who have been in it longer. I'll sometimes suggest a joke revision for somebody who I consider to be way more established than myself. We're always learning. We're working together, and there's always new territory. If you feel bored, like, oh, I've been doing these jokes for 10 years, then write some new stuff. If you feel stuck or identify a problem, there's a way around it. There's always new ways to grow and take all, like I meant, the one-liners I mentioned. I didn't start doing that till about 12 years into my career, but that's become, like, people come up to me afterwards, and some of those stand out really well with audiences. And it's a little bit scattered because one has nothing to do with the other, but I've talked to audience members who say that's how their minds work as well.
I think becoming famous as a comedian, it's sometimes a little bit of just luck of the draw. You got to
Yeah.
be seen by the right person at the right time.
Visibility, timing,
Yeah.
and you did ask for a sample one-liner earlier, and
Yes,
I'll
I
share
did.
one now because
Okay.
I can think of one that's not going to be controversial for the broadcast. I ask, isn't giving lottery tickets as a gift kind of like saying, here, I don't know if I got you anything?
In a way, I guess you're right.
Now, sometimes when I do that joke, it's at a fundraiser show where there are raffle items, and one of them is a basket of lottery tickets, so I have to be vigilant about that. But it could be a winner. Again, it's just a thought I had one time, and I wrote it down.
Yeah. You know, I used to think there was an actor, comedian, his name was Jonathan Winters. This is going way back.
I remember Jonathan. Yeah.
I thought he was quite funny.
He was on a sitcom, I think, for a while, but I think he was mostly known as a stand-up comedian.
But he used to say his best material came, he'd fall asleep, and I don't know, I guess he dreamed it or something. He'd get up and he'd go to the side of his bed and he'd write it down. It was like a funny line or something. But it seemed like he got better material while he was sleeping than when he was trying to get it while he was awake. So
Yep, I know some of my peers have said the same thing. What happens with me, usually it takes me a while to fall asleep sometimes, but once I'm out, I'm usually out for the night. But it will be the case that I'll be this close to falling asleep and an idea hits, and I have to pull myself out of it and write it down, otherwise I'm going to forget it.
You're going to forget it, yeah, that's typical.
So I can relate to that.
how do you determine if your performance is successful or not?
Instinctively, you go by whether the audience was laughing. It's hard not to. If I delivered all the jokes I wanted to, the way I wanted to, with little or no variation, especially jokes that I know work because they've been performed in front of many audiences, many types of audiences, and worked well. Even if I worked in some new material that I had confidence in, even if it hadn't been tested out, and I like my own delivery, my performance, how I feel it went, I consider that a success. If the audience wasn't laughing, of course I'm going to wonder why, but I also know, having done it this long, it could be because, again, a guy's wife might have dragged him there. He didn't want to be there. You don't know what your audience has been through that day. They may have come and been looking for a particular. I remember years ago I performed at a rural bar where I think they were expecting Larry the Cable Guy kind of humor, and none of the performers, including myself, delivered that. So everyone was kind of like, "What's going on here? This isn't the comedy we're familiar with." So you don't know what they expect. But more and more as I've done this, I have found that I am able to connect with a lot of different types of audiences. So I don't deviate too far. If I'm not connecting, I might talk to somebody and kind of talk to the audience and see if I can find a connection point and then tie it back to some of my scripted stuff. But I just accepting that you're not going to land with everyone as part of it, and it doesn't faze me too much anymore.
Okay. All right, we have 1 minute left. You do a fundraising branch to your comedy. The last minute of our show, could you explain that?
Yep. So Funny for Funds is a comedy fundraising organization that was started in Rhode Island in 2014. They've run over 3,000 shows at this point, raised over $13 million for all sorts of causes. If you need to raise money for any type of cause, your lodge, your church, your kids' high school sports team, a family member's medical bills, you would contact myself. I'll work with you on the proven formula that we have for running a successful comedy night. It involves, running raffles, auctions, sponsors, donations. We maximize how you're going to raise money for your cause through a comedy night.
And if somebody wanted to contact you, how could they contact you?
So there's a link from my main website, which is davesheehancomedy.com. I also have a branch on the site, so it's Funny for Funds, the digit 4, funnyforfunds.com/D Sheehan. That'll take you right to my portal. If you're interested in putting together a comedy night fundraiser, you'll fill out the initial form with the info.